time for a brand new episode of the Cinema Shame podcast, sponsored by DVD Netflix, because yes, you can still get movies in your mailbox.
Sign up today at dvd.netflix.com.
This is also a brand new season of Cinema Shame, firing on all cylinders for 2022, we hope. I'm still James Patrick, the host of Cinema Shame, because nobody's bothered to take my microphone away. My guest today is columnist, writer, board game aficionado, improv performer, and one of the most all-around excellent fellows I know. That guy, Andy Ross.
Well, thank you for that illustrious introduction. That's very kind of you.
We like to build our guests up before we tell them, how dare you not watch this movie until now. Now, you mentioned on the Twitters recently that you were going to watch Speed for the very first time, and I immediately knew I needed to have you on Cinema Shame to talk about your Speed experience.
Yes, I saw Speed for the first time as of this recording almost a week ago.
All right, pop quiz. Airport. Gunman with one hostage. He's using her for cover. He's almost to a plane. You're 100 feet away. What do you think?
Shoot the hostage.
What?
Go for the good wound and he can't get to the plane with her. Clear shot.
You're deeply nuts, you know that?
All right, gentlemen, what we have here are 13 passengers in an express elevator. Bomb's already taken out cables. Bomber wants $3 million or he blows the emergency brakes.
Anything else that'll keep this elevator from falling?
The basement.
He can strike anywhere, at any time.
Will the mystery guest please sign in?
Why are they messing with me? Do they think I'm doing this for fun?
For L.A. cop Jack Traven.
Tell me again, Harry, why did I take this job?
Come on, 30 more years of this, you get a tiny pension and a cheap gold watch.
Cool.
The game began.
Very exciting, Jack. Some close calls, huh?
When someone put the city of Los Angeles to the ultimate test.
Pop quiz, Hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
Now.
Are you insured? Yeah, why?
He's the only solution.
We just got a ransom demand from your terrorist. Says he's rigged the city bus. Where's Jack?
Where do you think?
Stay on or get off.
Get off.
And I think I know the answer to this. Why did you not see Speed until 2022?
Well, I guess the most obvious answer is I was 9 years old when it was in theaters.
Yeah.
And I actually was surprised it was rated R because I remember it being such a big thing. I assumed it was PG-13.
We were brainwashed now to believe that anything that's such a big hit can only be PG-13.
Yeah.
And I watched this with my 12-year-old late last year and was surprised to see how R it actually was. And it was a very big deal when it was released, June 10th, 1994, if you're keeping score. The movie made $350 million on a roughly $35 million budget, which is a nice return.
Yeah, that's a very nice.
And 2 Oscars for sound and sound effects editing, which probably didn't boost its overall take any, but it's nice to have on your shelf. Because you can put that little label on the box and say Academy Award-winning Speed.
Yeah, and that would have been fairly early on in the days of 5.1, I'm thinking, surround sound. So
I had the Laserdisc of that, and let me tell you, the house did some shaking because those old Laserdisc soundtracks far and away exceeded anything we got on DVD in terms of the sound editing itself.
Yeah, I have a surround sound system, and though I watched it streaming, I was quite impressed by how much my subwoofer was working.
It used to be a good one to fire up and test the limits. It was always Top Gun, Speed, and Desperado for me when I was showing off the Laserdisc system.
Back together again, eh?
Yeah.
Let's play.
The one that I remember using as like my show off disc when I first set everything up was, I think, Little Shop of Horrors.
I don't care what it takes. Only one of us gets out of here alive.
Better wait a minute. You better hold the phone.
Because they advertised that the scene towards the end when the plant is putting vines through the walls, they really made the subwoofer go off, and so that would make the walls rattle, and was always impressive to people who, granted, this was around 2003, so people were still like, why did you put a movie theater sound system, big air quotes around that, into your home? It seemed very abstract then.
It was the only right thing to do.
It was.
Okay. So talk a little bit about the production here, because I think some of this is pretty interesting to where we're going to go later on in this conversation. This was Jan de Bont's first directorial outing. Mm-hmm. Famously, he was cinematographer on Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, Lethal Weapon 3. Going back a little further, he was cinematographer on classics like Roar and Cujo.
Roar! The infamous Roar.
Infamous Roar. And Leonard Part 6. He wasn't their first choice, because they originally took this to John McTiernan. Because
Die Hard.
Because Die Hard. And though he considered it, and I was unclear about whether he was actually committed at any one point, he then passed because Die Hard.
Yeah.
And said, why don't you give it to Jan de Bont, because he was my cinematographer on Die Hard. It's like the next best thing. So casting is kind of interesting too, because so we're in early 90s, okay? The property was originally kind of living with Paramount before it moved over to the 20th Century Fox, and Paramount had an eye on casting Jeff Speakman.
I wonder if you could help me. I'm looking for a guy. He's good in Taekwondo, about 5'8", 150 pounds. Got a tattoo of a spider right here. You know him?
Yeah.
Great. I need to talk to him. Where is he?
Why don't you go home before you get hurt? I wonder if I could kick your ass.
So that's like that 1 year window where people knew who Jeff Speakman was.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like he just missed being the #1 draw for the Canon Film Organization.
He did. Well, yeah. Continuing remember where we are in the 90s, the movie moves over to 20th Century Fox, and Stephen Baldwin was the first choice to play Jack Craven.
Give me the fucking keys, you fucking cocksucker motherfucker! Knock it off, get back. Number 3, step forward.
I can kind of see that.
I mean, again, it's the right time. It was Stephen Baldwin's moment, and he was kind of a big deal, even though I'm not sure anyone really likes Stephen Baldwin. Yeah. He was a face that we were seeing. The casting of Annie was also interesting. They originally wanted Halle Berry for the role.
Oh, wow.
Which I think would have been okay. I think that would have been a good choice. Unfortunately, they wrote it for sort of a bus driver, so they were trying to cast a black woman to be a bus driver, which So, well, they did sidestep that little problem that would have hurt them in the long run. Then they apparently approached Meryl Streep, which I can't even fathom what they were doing with that.
Part of me is sad we don't live in the universe where Meryl Streep is in Speed, I have to say.
No, it's a weird thing. Kim Basinger was also on the list that I read.
That's another that makes sense, yeah.
It's not Meryl Streep.
No. But you can see the evolution to get to Kim Basinger from what it eventually was.
Yeah. After they had trouble originally casting a bigger name, they rewrote the part to make it a more secondary role as sort of a sidekick, and Ellen DeGeneres was on that list, which thankfully she did not accept the role.
Yeah, because I can see the poster of that movie that was like her first big movie, and I can't think of the name of it. But I want to feel like this is kind of around that time period.
It is. There was, again, the early 90s were, if you weren't there, it was a weird time and place.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting into that a little bit here. Another rewrite pushed the role back up into, a co-star. So it was both sidekick and love interest. And Demolition Man had just come out.
Chief, you can take this job and you can shovel it.
Take this job and shovel it.
Yeah?
Close enough.
When 20th Century Fox assumed the property, they demanded that the bus not take place all on a bus, which was the original conception that screenwriter Graham Yost came up with. So Graham Yost is sort of an interesting character because he got his start writing on Hey Dude and Herman's Head.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
Hey, dude.
It's a little wild and a little strange.
Speed was his big breakthrough screenplay that he got when his father told him to watch Runaway Train from 1985, which is about a train that speeds out of control, which was in turn based on Akira Kurosawa concept from the 60s and then a 1975 Japanese movie called The Bullet Train. He watched it and said the movie would have been better with a bomb on the train.
Murder on the Orient Express, put a bomb on the train. And
put a bomb on the train.
You got a whole new level of problems for Poirot.
That would be interesting. He also borrowed the finale from Silver Streak.
Yeah.
I don't know if he admitted that.
Coffee, miss?
No, thanks.
He ain't bullshitting about the cuisine.
Yeah. The original script for Speed also had the bus running into the Hollywood sign and blowing it to bits.
Hollywood does like to blow that sign up a lot.
They do. It is a sort of a pastime for them. Before filming commenced, we brought in Joss Whedon to polish up the dialogue, and we won't talk too much about Joss. He's having a rough week.
The less said about him, the better.
Right. He is also responsible for the pop quiz Hotshot, and that is where we'll leave Joss. Why now? Why did you watch Speed in 2022? I know we got around to why you didn't watch it in 1994. But what about 2022 said send watch Speed?
When everything kind of shut down in 2020, I spent summer 2020 kind of revisiting a lot of 90s films I had not seen in a long time. Partially for nostalgia and partially because to see if I still enjoyed them as much. And so that kind of got me on a kick of thinking about big 90s films that I had missed the first time around for one reason or another, either because I was too young to have access to them, or I just it never appealed to me at the time. And somebody had tweeted something about Speed, or I saw something about Speed on Letterboxd or somewhere, and I thought to myself, I've actually never seen Speed. I should probably see Speed at some point in time. And then I was, about a week ago, I was browsing HBO Max just to see what was on there, and lo and behold, Speed is on HBO Max, and I thought, well, you know what? Let's watch it. That's pretty much as much of a reasoning I had, was just, well, it's on HBO Max and I've never seen it. It's a big 90s film that I missed, so let's watch it.
And you set yourself a date because you tweeted out beforehand?
Yeah, I was going to do it Thursday night, but when I saw the time length, it was getting late in the evening, and I thought, okay, I'm going to save this for...
You need to be fresh.
Yeah, I want to save this for Friday night because I was watching something that I had to write about, I think, or there was something I had to watch Thursday night that would make like watching Speed start around like a quarter to 10, and I didn't want a big movie commitment at a quarter to 10 on a Thursday night. I have nothing necessarily against 2 hour plus movies, but sometimes we I don't want to like be wanting to get into bed and be like, okay, at what point is this thing going to end? Just from sheer exhaustion. And I thought, well, I'll just tweet out, oh, I'm going to watch Speed for the first time, just as a tweet, and immediately had people being excited I was seeing it for the first time and surprised I was seeing it for the first time. Hence my appearance here.
Mm-hmm. It is a little bit of an adrenaline movie to watch late at night too. I think you need to set that early in the evening so you can eventually go to sleep.
Yeah, and like kind of not knowing much about it outside of remembering the sentient plots or the basic plot lines of Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves, bus, 50 miles per hour, explosions. I kind of thought of it as just, well, this is going to be kind of like a Die Hard thing, and this is not a diss on the movie Die Hard, but I'm a little burnt out on Die Hard right now.
It's a Christmas movie,
That's part of the reason why is, every single December I have to deal with a lot of people just clinging to Die Hard as a Christmas movie like it's their personality.
Well, it matters. It really matters.
Yeah, and I'm
is Speed a Christmas movie? Let's try and get that started.
Yeah, let's get that started. And I'm all for like subverting things, but after a while, it's like we all know you don't have to justify watching Die Hard as a Christmas movie. Please, it's fine. You can enjoy your Die Hard whenever you want, because when Die Hard's on a bagel, you can have Die Hard anytime.
Mm-hmm.
But I typically am not I don't want to say I'm a big action movie person, but because I do enjoy, I like the Bond franchise, but I'm not necessarily like very. I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly how I want to describe this, but I'm not super into like disaster-y type movies or big like 2 hours of things are going down and sort of hyper masculine things are going down and I've got to get covered in dirt and save the day while there's a synthesizer playing behind me and lots of explosions, and because kind of the movies that like I remember my older cousins watching when I was a kid that just seemed, I don't want to say they're one note, but to me as a kid and sort of as a teenager with weird taste, they seemed very sort of, well, I know what this is. And I think I felt the same way about Speed. Oh, well, there's the bomb's not going to actually go off because it's an action film. You know that Die Hard's going to end with the hero saving the day, but I guess I just never clearly felt compelled. I didn't have a strong, compelling reason to sit through Speed because I was unfairly, now that I have watched it, kind of lumping it in with sort of a category of films that I sort of, you kind of see the poster and you immediately know what's happening.
And there is a little bit more to it. We talked about the love interest angle, and that feels a little more. I won't go as far as saying it feels real, but it does add. There is a sense of chemistry between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock that makes it work better than your typical, certainly better than your typical 90s action movie. Though there was a very specific type of action movie, and you described that pretty well, that came about in the, I guess we could say 88, 89, in the early 90s, that was, under siege.
Right, exactly, yeah. Which I never really like those films, even to like I just said, those things never really appealed to me. And one of the things that surprised me most about the film was once Sandra Bullock got behind the wheel, I thought, okay, so she's gonna be like having panic attacks the entire time, but she's being funny and quippy, and I was sitting there like, well, that's very refreshing. It really surprised me by sort of how casual she was about the role she was in. In terms of like, she clearly she was holding herself together very well, and yet she's also like exchanging some pretty great little bits of dialogue.
mean, driving the bus, I mean, I thought, okay, this is going to be nice. I get to sit, drive the bus for a couple of weeks. It's not as easy as it looks. So I was stuck there. So it will be a very fast film. Eloquently said by Sandra Bullock.
She really is turning in sort of a star-making performance because she's not given space to explore. I mean, her role for 75% of the movie is confined to the bus seat, and she is really spinning a certain amount of charm and humor and easygoing attitude that really is appealing. There's an immediate draw to her as an actress. And you can see why this really set her career in every which direction from this point, because she is both funny and she's shown that she can do some of this action stuff too. She gets to do a little bit in Demolition Man, but this is certainly a step forward for her. And this then brought about things like The Net and While You're Sleeping in Short Order.
Yeah, watching the film, it works because of her. And you know, it works because of the character she's playing, but also the way that she is delivering those lines. Like I said, there was I don't want to say laissez-faire because that's not really correct, but there was, like I said, this sort of very, for someone who's in an action movie behind the wheel of a bus that has a bomb strapped to it, she was very casual about the whole thing, which I found, like I said, just so refreshing, because, you know, obviously the threat that's happening is very real. Because, you know, I thought, well, you know, I wonder if they wrote it for I'm blanking out on his name, the villain. Help me out here.
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper. Thank you. And I wondered if they wrote it for him, because he's perfectly unhinged Hopper.
What do you think, Jack? You think if you pick up all the bus drivers' teeth, they'll give you another medal? You think I wouldn't have been prepared? 2 years I spent setting up that elevator job. 2 years I invested myself in it. You couldn't understand the kind of commitment that I have. You're in a man's life's work, and you think you can walk away. You got blinders on to the world. But I got your attention now, didn't I, Jack?
Why didn't you just come after me?
No, this is about me. This is about my money. This is about money due me, which I will collect. $3.7 million. It's my nest egg, Jack. At my age, you gotta think ahead.
When I find you...
Pop quiz, Hotshot. There's a bomb on a bus. Once the bus goes 50 miles an hour, the bomb is armed. If it drops below 50, it blows up. What do you do? What do you do?
I'd want to know what bus it was.
You know, certain characters say they're crazy. Yes. And they do crazy things. But with Dennis Hopper, you really do believe it. Part of it's because of, you know, what we know about Dennis Hopper outside of his movie roles. Like, he's outside his personality. There's sort of this element of the man being unhinged in real life. So, you bring this baggage into the theater and into your couch when you watch Speed. This guy could do these things. He's not just saying he's crazy. The movie isn't just setting him up to be crazy. And I think that's a big difference when a movie succeeds, like an action movie succeeds. And that's an important part about believing the movie's plot at all, because it is pretty far out there.
And it's a complete reversal of the villain in Die Hard, which is almost cut from the Bondian mold of, I am very well coiffed, I have an impeccable suit, and I let everybody else do the grunt work. You know, whereas as Dennis Hopper is a one-man show.
Did your expectations for the movie help or hinder your, I want to say discovery, but your viewing?
Like I said, I kind of thought, well, I know what the beats of this are going to be, and I was actually almost immediately, the film surprised me, because there were a few moments early on in the scene where they're trying to get the people off of the elevator, where there were certain setups to action film tropes that then did not completely happen. And I was pleasantly surprised by that because there was times I thought, okay, she's reaching out her hand, it's going to drop, and her arm's going to get cut off. That's what's about to happen, and it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, well, thank you, movie, for not doing what I was expecting.
I think the structure contributes to that sense that it doesn't quite unfold as you would anticipate, because it does start you with that elevator scene. It does have that, the kind of a cold open to the elevator. So when you go in and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a movie on a bus,
right?
And it takes a good 20 or so minutes before a bus even enters the picture.
A lot happens before we even get to the bus, before we even know that there's a bomb on the bus. To the point that I was sitting there like, oh, okay, it's weird because you could almost, the first, let's say, half hour of Speed, 25 minutes of Speed, feels like the end of another movie, and then the rest of it is like a sequel to that movie.
That's true. It does feel that way.
And even the title sequence, it took me a little bit to figure out that it was an elevator shaft, because the title sequence was even peculiar to me for an action film of the era, because I was expecting, black background, just sort of hard, still looking text with like some kind of like hyper masculine saddle up. There's going to be a bomb on a bus. Eat your popcorn. The seat's going to rattle. Let's go, kind of a film. It's again, from an outsider's perspective, having not seen it, it's sort of in my head, I like I said, I kind of had an idea for what Speed was going to be, and I kept being so pleasantly surprised. Now, early on, I did figure out early on. I thought, okay, Jeff Daniels isn't going to survive this movie.
And it is worth noting that you expect Speed or the action movies of its like to receive sort of a lukewarm critical response, but Speed was one of the few of that era, certainly, that had widespread accolades from critics. I wrote down just a couple of blurbs that I came across. One, because I knew Ebert loved it at the time, so I went to find his blurb.
This is what I call a bruised forearm movie, because you grab the arm of the person sitting next to you in scenes like the one where the bus is going to have to try to jump that 50-foot gap. I knew it wasn't possible in real life, but I didn't care. I thought this movie was really superb in the way it put together these very, like how can, in Los Angeles, you have a bus that can't go less than 50 miles an hour with the bad traffic out there? And how do they manage to keep moving more than 50 miles an hour? That in itself
there are also some
terrific.
Marvelous stunt pieces when he has to try and get at the bomb.
The bus,
all of that stuff really works, and that could have, they could have shortchanged us in a whole lot of different ways. He's really, we feel that he's really down there, and a lot of work is done. And also, simple things like grabbing people out of small places and freeing them up. It's all done very, very well.
When you think, my God, this movie can't do anything more, then they go down to the subway train, and you have a whole other movie right down there.
It's a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Okay, next movie, and our next movie.
That's wonderful. In the hands of maybe another director, another production staff, the movie is almost like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Well, I think that's a good point, because you can be satisfied, because there's so little room for these things to innovate.
Right.
So you can go in expecting a certain thing, and you can be satisfied. I think that's generally how you feel. It's when you're surprised or it elevates the genre that's when you get that extra sense of, wow, I haven't seen that before.
Seeing the film now for me, having obviously not seen it when it came out, or not seen it at any point in the 90s or when I was younger, a summer action film from 1994 could still pleasantly surprise me in 2022 is really a testament to the film.
I think you also benefit because they don't make movies like this anymore.
No, and I have to say, I was so surprised by how much of it was practical, to the point I don't necessarily want to grouse into the land of they don't make them like they used to, but I part of me, as I have been watching, a lot of '90s films over the past summer and over the past quarantine and all, I do kind of have a very nostalgic sweet spot for that mid '90s period where practical and CGI still existed together as one.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like, I mean, we absolutely, we lost an art form when things went more completely to digital and green screen, and now we have the Marvel films where most
Where
of that
nothing is
stuff,
real.
yeah, nothing at all is real. And something that you mentioned earlier about feeling like a film hadn't earned something, that was a big problem I had with one of the last Avengers films, was there was all these big emotional notes being played, but I kind of felt like the film was just doing it to get an emotion out of the audience, not because it necessarily earned it.
Well, I think those movies have become kind of paint by numbers, but it's the way that you can take a property. I mean, in terms of speed, we're looking at Die Hard on the dynamic that develops between the people who are stuck on that bus.
And I gotta say, another, and I didn't think to mention it until you mentioned the bus passengers, but something that surprised the heck out of me, and I can never remember his name, because I had to look it up while I was watching the film. But when I saw, and he's been, and I hate that I'm going to this because it's what everybody goes to, but when I saw that Ferris Bueller's Best Friend was in it. As one of the passengers, I
Alan
was like,
Ruck.
"Oh, thank you, Alan
Yep.
Ruck." There it is. Every time I can, and I feel terrible that I can never remember his name, because he's had a heck of a career. When I was looking him up the other night, trying to remember his name, when I saw Alan Ruck was in it, my reaction was, "Okay, this film is not what I anticipated, not what I expected," and and again, it's such a testament to the production staff that you easily bought into what was happening, because at no point did I feel like, oh, we're on a back lot here.
Mm-hmm.
We're on a back lot. We're just, this is, New
It all
York.
feels a little dangerous.
Yeah, it legit feels dangerous. Like, I watched it and I was kind of like, how in the world did they get the okay to shut down sections of an interstate to film this movie? Because obviously there's only so much real estate they had to work with. So, take after take after take. I really was just, I think one of the things that impressed me most was just that the film exists the way that it does.
I do know that a lot of the stunts were real and were dangerous, and Keanu Reeves legitimately did the stunt where he's jumping from the Jaguar to the bus.
Oh, wow.
He and Bont fought about that, and the story goes that he went and practiced the stunt in secret so that when they shot it, he showed up and said, "I'm doing it." And Bont eventually allowed him to do that, which is sort of insane to me. But
completely,
he might have been in a different headspace too, because I know that his friend River Phoenix died during production. So I'm not saying he wasn't in his right mind, but maybe he wasn't in his right mind.
Yeah.
You get on the bus.
Drive straight. Stay in this lane.
What's the road? Oh, wait a minute. What are you doing?
Are you insured?
Yeah, why?
Like, never for a moment do you sense that something has been faked or computer generated. It feels real. The stunts, the driving, the crashing through the cars, going back to stuff that they don't do anymore because of the cost, and like, oh, do you really have to do that way? And why can't you just do this such and such? It all goes to your head when you're watching Speed in 2020, because you're seeing things and maybe it feels different because there's an extra weight to it that maybe that you're not consciously thinking of when you're watching a movie, but you can feel it.
Yeah, I kept expecting to see the seams. I kept expecting I will see a seam at some point. And every time they would set up some big stunt, and I kept thinking, okay, well, this is when I'm going to be able to tell that this was backlot or something. And I never could. And it really was just...
and even the most ridiculous stunt, the bus jump over the vacant the unfinished highway.
Yeah, I was convinced that was going to cut to a miniature, and when it didn't, I just sat there going, gosh, we used to make movies where we would jump a bus.
After 2 weeks of rehearsal, it was time to jump a bus. The ramp was built, which is why you can actually see the wood in the final cut, and the passengers were evacuated, which is why you can't actually see them in the final cut. Paramedics and firefighters were on hand. There were 5 cameras, 4 manned. Jan de Bont instructed his crew that if he saw a single element of the stunt that seemed to miss, he would yell, "Leave, leave, leave!" and everyone was to evacuate. And with that, Joffrey put the pedal to the metal from a mile away. The bus's intended speed was 69 miles an hour, but they only reached 61. Still, when it hit the ramp, the bus's nose skied higher and flew farther than expected, a full 109 feet. This was problematic as it landed directly atop one of the cameras, crushing it.
And you can make great action movies in 2022. We're not saying that that's impossible. We're not saying that it's just that the filmmaking focus has gone away from practical stunts. And they're still there, but when we watch these movies, I mean, you can see that there's all sorts of different pushes and pulls in the way that movies are made now versus the way they were made then. The budgetary concerns are not the same. The middle ground for movies like Speed, the $40 million movie that goes on to make $400 million that's like buying a lottery ticket. And studios have decided that that's not worth the risk anymore. So we've allocated money for very small movies, and we've allocated money for massive $200 million action movies.
Yeah.
And that middle ground has shrunk. And that's where Speed lives. So you get these mid-budget movies that can really thrill you, but they stand out because they are a rare thing.
Yeah.
And Hollywood has recognized that. Versus where we were in the 80s when they were, I like to point out movies like Ghostbusters specifically as like another $40 million movie on a unproven cast with an unproven filmmaker running amok in New York City
with lots of
effects that they didn't know how to do.
You could even argue that with the Tim Burton Batman because, there was so much sort of the shields were up because it was Tim Burton and Michael Keaton making a Batman movie, and so people thought this was going to be a
director they didn't want with an actor they didn't want,
right?
Based on a property that was too old for anybody to care about, they said.
And from the perspective of not me falling in love with that movie when I was a kid, but from me today, it also seems completely insane. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be a bunch of Prince songs in this.
Right. Well, the producers for that movie were certifiably nuts.
Yeah.
Peters and Gruber, those guys were just burned money. There's an excellent book on those guys.
I very much would enjoy reading that.
And in a better podcast, I'd remember the name of it and I'd talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I've blanked out on Dennis Hopper's name. So there's no blame for anyone here.
It's on the tip of my tongue, and I just... It's called Hit and Run.
Oh, okay.
Hey. How John Peters and Peter Gruber took Sony for a ride.
Clue's one of my favorite movies, and I forget that they are on there as producers, and that's another weird, boy, that's a bit of a jump. That the guys who are responsible for Clue also did Batman.
Yes.
With a bunch of other producers. I think there's 4 or 5 producers on Clue, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to, is there a little girl's room in the hall? Oui, madame. No, I just want to powder my nose, thank you.
I think we did it. But I do have one more thing for you.
Yes.
As all good Cinema Shame episodes do, I have a little bit of a quiz for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have not prompted you about the nature of this quiz, so you've had no time to research. Is that correct?
Correct. This is my own personal pop quiz hotshot.
That's right. See, you took the line. That's fine. You're good.
Yeah.
Pop quiz hotshot. This is obvious. Called. You ready?
All right.
Die Hard on a. I would say Die Hard on a bus, and you would say Speed.
Okay.
So these are all Die Hard on a something.
And I have to fill in the real movie?
You have to fill in the movie.
Okay.
This may go horribly wrong.
It might be.
It might go horribly right.
You may get some truly bizarre answers because I have a very weird way of looking at things.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am gripped and sorted and ready.
Okay. Die Hard in a boarding school.
Blues Brothers.
Bonus points for creativity. That is Toy Soldiers. Toy Soldiers is the answer I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember Toy Soldiers?
I've never seen Toy Soldiers.
That's a shame. That's a Sean Astin classic.
Hey, I enjoy me some Sean Astin.
Next, this one has multiple answers. Bonus points for multiple answers.
Okay.
Die Hard on an airplane.
Airport comes to mind. Airplane 2 in a weird way comes to mind. Air Force One comes to mind. And I don't want to say Snakes on a Plane because that's too obvious. But Con Air.
Con Air, right? Yeah. I've got two more. You've gotten 3 of the ones I had listed.
Okay, 2
I had
more.
5.
There's some other. I know there's some airplane film I'm absolutely blanking out on.
I'll give you the leading man.
Okay.
Wesley Snipes.
I can see the VHS cover, but I cannot think of the name.
Passenger 57.
Yeah.
And one more. Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. Oh man. Oh gosh. Dang it. It's another one that I can kind of see a still of it, but I cannot think of it.
Executive Decision.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Die Hard on a battleship.
Die Hard on a battleship, okay.
Previously mentioned in this episode.
Hunt for Red October?
I was going for Under Siege.
Under Siege, okay.
Follow-up, Die Hard on a Train.
Die Hard on a Train. Because it is tangibly connected to Die Hard, if you really do the research, Von Ryan's Express.
I didn't have them. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
The one I had was Under Siege 2, Dark Territory.
I have, I don't think I've ever seen a Steven Seagal film all the way through. I have to say.
I mean, it's okay. I'm not going to ding you. I'm not going to ding you for that one.
No, I feel like I'm okay.
Die Hard on a Mountain.
Die Hard on a Mountain. Would that be Cliffhanger?
Oh, yes, it would.
Yeah.
Die Hard in a hockey arena.
Die Hard in a hockey arena. Oh, wow. Okay. Die Hard in a hockey arena. I'm going to say The Mighty Ducks 3.
I'll accept it. This one stars Jean-Claude Van Damme in Sudden Death.
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme films either.
Well, Sudden Death would be a good place to start.
Okay.
Because it takes place in the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh. So, special place in my heart.
Listen.
And features the Penguins mascot, Iceberg.
Well, more films should take place in the Civic Arena in Pittsburgh.
It no longer exists.
Oh, well, see, shows you what I know.
And one more, just to cap off this entire episode. Die Hard on a cruise ship.
Die Hard on a cruise ship, well, I'm assuming that is Speed 2 Cruise Control.
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
The much maligned Speed 2 Cruise Control, which I assume you have not. I mean, maybe you went right out and hit up Speed 2. No?
I have not hit up Speed 2, but I have to say, in terms of over-the-top titles to give a sequel to Speed, they really nailed it.
It really does. I don't know. Somehow calling a movie Cruise Control on a cruise ship, and then assuming Cruise Control is a little bit more plotting than Speed. So it's like you're dialing it up for Speed 2, but then you're bringing it back down because we're going to put it on Cruise Control.
Well, or they could if they had I don't know what year Speed 2 would have been, but if they had cast Tom Cruise in it and had him being under the control of Sandra Bullock, that could have had a whole new level to Speed 2 Cruise Control. Or if we really wanted to have hit full weird 90s movies sequel bingo, you call it Speed 2, Cruise Control, The Search for Curly's Gold.
I do like the Tom Cruise idea. Unfortunately, it's just Jason Patric.
Does the Smokey Robinson song Cruising at some point play in the movie?
You know what? I don't think I've seen the movie since the theater, so I can't deny it.
Because like if they didn't slap that in over the end credits, it's a missed opportunity.
Had hit the hood of Eastwood, that well-known meanie who like Bellini thought absurd. Soderbergh's claim that famous Harold Ramis was the greatest director in the history of cinema.
You have chosen wisely.